Right, we are live and getting started with the weekly webinar about AI machine learning. As you can tell from the title, it is, well, let me get the titles up so that way I can see it and read it right off the title there. All right, so a little bit of technical glitch there. Um, so you see all the AI machine learning all over the news. Now adopt one, right? Ask me anything. So kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying there's lots of news about AI machine learning, and it's increasing in size on a daily basis. How do we understand the use cases, and how do we adopt one, right? One of the discussions that I've been having with Destiny recently is to say this is not adapting, this is not adjusting to a software, this is an adapting, which is that you have to raise the system, just like you would raise a pet, right? For it to teach it some tricks, teach it some ways to do things that you are expecting it to perform, right? Or as in you're expecting it to be able to give you an answer on, right? And give you the answer based on some valid fact. So, for example, this is what ChatGPT is dealing with at this point, right? It has to be able to prove to you as the user that, hey, not only is this information accurate, but this is where this information actually came from. That applies to all of AI machine learning, not just to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a certainly the shiny use case that we can all discuss and have fun with. Uh, but over time, ChatGPT is one of the use cases, right? ChatGPT is a drop of water in a dry bucket at this time, because we've been so thirsty for an AI like a solution. Um, that we would have to be able to say, how do we incorporate chat gpt to our rest of our AI machine learning capabilities, right? Yes, we have chat gpt today, but how long will it be around? Is the something else happened to my screens here. All right, not a biggie. Okay, so you have ChatGPT as a single use case, but how are you able to integrate rest of the AI features into your um, uh, capability portfolio when it comes to AI machine learning? So there's a whole lot to discuss, and it's like going to a grocery store and picking out what it is that you need, so you can take it back home and use it, right? So when the organizations are shopping around for their capabilities and their AI machine learning capabilities, they have some questions, and we will try to answer some of them today, right? Based on the discussions I had recently, I've formulated some questions that I think is worth discussing out in public, so that way we are able to articulate these for our industry, as in articulate that for our organization. So when we go back to our team, when we go back to our development side of folks, how do we convey the message of what it is that we need, and how it is that we will adopt it, and how it is that we'll be able to scale it, right? So let's say, example, you have adopted a large language model. What do you do next? Just because you have adopted it, just because you've been using it, it's great, right? Next step is to scale it for higher purposes, interoperability, right? And what happens if you have made a decision of purchase, yet something is preventing you from scaling it, right? And those are the kind of important type of discussions that we have to have, and we will have Q&A, we will have discussions, we will have ways to share information and knowledge from facilitated conversation, so that way we're able to draw a map to the total visions that we have for the success of our organization, right? All right. So, of course, why now is always a question that you have to ask yourself, because the data that we have been able to collect for last decade or so has been tremendous amount of information, tremendous amount of data, tremendous amount of knowledge. Those knowledge has turned into wisdom. Great. we're very much on the track to get to a point where we can achieve artificial intelligence for many use cases, right? Multiple spectrum of use cases. But data, on the other hand, is going out of control, right? Data in 2021 was 90% more than the data that we have had previously, right? So this data growth is not something incremental, rather exponential. And cost of these data, um, the cost of the data storage, right? Data at rest is very time consuming and takes lots of manpower, man hours, and of course, return on investment, right? The ability to gain more return on investment for a business, it's that much more difficult because data in motion and data at rest are just not worth the return on investment, right? The increase in data is happening. So how do we utilize this data for more and better things so that way the return on investment is far better than what we would have expected 10 years ago versus 10 years from now, right? We want to be able to recalculate that return on investment and say, how do we engage with the data that we've been collecting for so long and have that data be used for the purposes that we would like it to be, more for user experience, for more for user engagement, and for better market share, right? So this kind of conversations we're having today is about AI machine learning and how to engage with AI machine learning today, so that way we can definitely see the benefit in the future and figure out the risk management behind it, figure out the opportunities behind it, right? Figure out the threats that comes with having that much data. But having that much data could also come with some strength that you do have that much data, and having that data is part of your portfolio of your business, right? Uh, just layers and layers of conversation to have, but let's get started with how the data size is increasing very exponentially, right? So one of the examples I love to use is the fact that at this point in time, we have a traffic that is from our brain to the fingers in our keyboard into a system, that system that is able to take command and produce this data and collect this data, and however the process of data acquisition goes, right? That data acquisition cycle is to say, we give it a command, and through the command, the system is able to connect the dots and is able to extract data and bring those data in. That's our data collection process today. So what happens when we are in a world where we have interfaces that are attached to our brain, that is collecting information from our brain and taking commands from our brain, and it's understanding how it is that we're thinking, what it is that we're thinking, right? um, the exponential amount of data growth that we are seeing today, it's not here to slow down at all. We are developing far more sophisticated pipelines for data collection purposes. And that data collection purposes means we have to understand the better usage of this data by understanding the computing power, by understanding how it is that those data will help us to make decisions, if not automate or decision making, it's able to give us a better user experience. How it is that we engage with that much data? Because today, today is a great day to get started, but unfortunately, I could say that 10 years ago would have been much better, right? Because the way the world is moving today, the amount of data that we have, we have to really rush into and get into it today. We don't have the luxury of taking the time like we did probably 10 years ago or so, right? Because the amount of capability, amount of competition, amount of competitive edge that the competition will have, it's not easy to catch up with if we're that delayed, right? Um, so why now? Well, now is the time because tomorrow is too late, right? Because we've seen for the last 7 months the amount of AI machine learning tools that have hit the market. It's not even comprehensible. The list is growing way too fast. Exponential growth worldwide in AI machine learning adaptability has grown in size like overnight. All right. So let me go ahead and put this out there. If you're listening to this uh, live webinar, feel free to um, put your comments in here so I can see who's listening in, and if I have uh, any feedback for you specifically for your industry or for your type of work that you're engaged in, or your career that you're looking for, I'll be able to answer it. And I always welcome any participant from any level of the workforce or the engagement of AI machine learning. Feel free to ask your question. I'll be able to answer it or try to answer it, and maybe get back to you with a better answer next time. Um, right. So moving on to the next slide here. Of course, we're talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning over and over, but I want you to think of machine learning specifically. And when you start thinking about machine learning, you actually get a better perspective of what an artificial intelligence is, because artificial intelligence is a broad spectrum term, is so wide that it could be used by anybody for any purposes or any reason. So what we want to do is discuss machine learning specifically and see how it is that machine learning will be able to help us narrow down our use cases, right? So if you're looking at the machine learning as your use cases, majority of the organizations are looking at it from the perspective of large language models. So what is a large language model? ChatGPT is based on large language model. Bard and so many other natural language processing tools that you will see will be based on large language models. So these large language models are pre-trained sets of languages that are the pre-trained models that are able to give you lots of answers, right? So what you see right now is artificial intelligence that's giving you an answer, right? It's helping you to make better decisions through those answers. But if you think about predictive analytics, as in your ability to make decisions based on the patterns you have captured previously, right? If you're able to understand the patterns that you have seen before and how those patterns will impact in the future performances for business or future capabilities, we want to be able to articulate that ahead of time so we can engage with those use cases down the road. So predictive analytics is something that is a low-hanging fruit, along with computer vision, which you can see in Tesla cars. Tesla cars are able to drive itself, and you have capabilities as in camera sensors, right? The sensors in the cameras are able to detect what it is this is seeing. But now, if you can imagine scaling and having interoperability based off of that computer vision with large language model, is where we're heading next. We are optimizing these use cases for better and future purposes. Okay, give me a second here. I'm gonna check. It is a this is a presentation that is not a TED Talk. So if you feel like you have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions. And like I said, I'll try to answer it for you with the best of my ability, because that's what I do. I take questions and answer questions, and try to give you a solution and try to draw you a roadmap based off your business need. This is kind of strange. Don't really see who's listening in or who might be in the call. However, this is recorded, so you will be able to view it for a later time. And I'll try to make some clips of the important part of this discussion so you don't have to watch the whole presentation. Um, okay, everything looks good here so far. Okay, so this presentation is very powerful, in my opinion, because it's worth engaging in, because if you're within an industry, and let's say, for example, you're in the industry of logistics and transportation, or manufacturing, where I do manufacturing and logistics and transportation. So when I look at the use cases, I have to think of not just the use case, but how is that the use case coming together in order to serve us better, right? How it is that it assists the human workers and how it is that it improves our way of life better. It's all based on data, right? So if you look at it from a layer perspective, all AIs are data, and all industry has data, right? So every industry that has data and how the data is collected and how the data is served is just industry specific, but otherwise it is just data. So if you're able to think of it from the perspective that any sort of data that you have collected could apply to any of these industries, right? Say, for example, earlier we talked about computer vision. Well, computer vision is CGI, right? CGIs are what allows you to build movies like Transformers, right? You really don't have to go out and build a whole transformer robot to capture it in the movie cameras, right? You are able to create a CGI just off of a prompt instruction, right? So instead of having to go through the designing and scaling and all sorts of painful process of having a movie made based on CGI, now you're able to just use prompt instruction to say, I want the system to create me a transformer that does not look anything like the previous transformer. This one is completely on its own, brand new one. And as it moves around through the screenshots with the actors and actresses, it's able to interact with the actors and actresses. It has some complexity. But if you think about it, these are all data behind the scene. So just like a large language model, they'll be able to interact with a CGI software. The system is going through multiple levels of data in order to perform its tasks. So that data is just always there, no matter what the industry is. So if you go off of entertainment, off into the travel industry, well, how does that work? Well, you could use CGI to show somebody what it is that they will experience once they land in their vacation spot, right? It will be able to articulate a 360 view without losing a beat, right? How do you do live feed view using AI machine learning? Well, that's possible because live feed view means how do you reduce the amount of data that is traveling through the system, right? So you have many of this use cases that is in not industry specific, but rather adoptable by all the industries as needed. Deepfake, for example, could impact banking and financial services, right? And deepfake could eventually help medical industry to perform a better patient care, right? Perform and better detection of disease, right? So you have deep fakes that could apply to all the industries. Deep fake in the entertainment industry, that means you're able to have a single famous actor make movies for next 200 years, right? That's deep fake, but it's just a matter of how you engage it and what sort of data you're utilizing for their use case purposes. And before going on too far into the um, rest of the use cases, let's talk a little bit about machine learning. So I'm showing this here. It's not because it's that easy to do AI machine learning training. It's not that easy to have this AI machine learning perform the way human eye would expect it to perform or human experience will demand it performs. Right? It's not that easy. It's just not about asking simple size questions, but the data collection process is probably the most tedious and most dirty work within AI machine learning development. So it's sort of like if AI machine learning was the nice shiny tower inside of the city, in the middle of the city. You have to think about data collection and data acquisition process as a coal mine out of in Virginia, right? West Virginia, where they have to go down in the ground and get all the coals out, and then the coals are eventually what's providing this mega cities with electricity, right? So it's a very dirty work. There's lots of process behind it, lots of work behind it. However, these days, data acquisition process is far more simpler than what it used to be. There are lots of applications and lots of software that can help you with data acquisition process, your data mining process, your ability to train those data. And then even if you don't find a good, successful outcome, you are always able to repeat that process without much delay, right? So speaking on more topics of AI machine learning use cases, well, now the government is on board, So now that the government is on board, your use cases has shot up to a point that there's now principle based into those AI machine learning use cases. As in, it cannot just be built because we have the capability for today, but we have the need to have a ethical stance, a need to understand the safety and security of the users, and have the understanding that just because we can doesn't mean we will, right? We will have to develop based on our need, and have those principles be utilized for us to stand in the ground with everybody else who's not going to do the shortcut to you know um, I guess destroy the trust of AI machine learning from the people. So uh, now that there's enough people paying attention, now that there's government involved, now that the Congress is passing laws about or investigating about how to approach AI machine learning and how to regulate it, we will have to take understand a deeper dive into understanding like how it is that we can develop our AI not just for sustainability, but the purposes of having ethics built into it, having the bias checked, and have the understanding of how this bias will impact the population that will be utilizing this AI machine learning system. So I don't see any questions here. I'm checking YouTube and Facebook. All right. Okay. So what happens when you have a use case that you are thinking that you might have to invest in, right? So where are we right now at this point of data? Is we do lots of data analytics. We do lots of data analytics because we are able to do data analytics because the software has been built, and the data analytics eventually turns into data intelligence because this data that we've been collecting eventually becomes part of our data intelligence capability, as in these data are able to provide us with early detection capability, insights into anomalies that we haven't really seen before or thought of before, able us to do RPAs, automation based on this data, so that way the data can validate other data that is being created by this data intelligence system. So these are step-by-step process where if you're very comfortable with data intelligence, maybe you're just ready for machine learning capability as your next step, right? And if you're having to understand machine learning that deeply, and that you're embedding multiple machine learning capability within your business process, now you have the capability to say, now we have artificial intelligence, but the goal is not to have artificial intelligence. Goal is to have a business process that is well functioning and very much able to is collect the data and reutilize this data for the purposes of a full feedback loop, right? And I'll get a little bit more into that later if we have some time. But full feedback loop is what it looks like to have the future of data collection, because we can no longer afford to have data in rest that cost us more money than data in use that makes us more money, right? The math doesn't add up if you have data at rest that costs more money to save, yet the data usage does not generate enough income to have those data provide us with return on data. And I want to break it down further, right? So why do we have business analytics, right? The reason we have data analytics is because we have business logic that allowed us to think through what an input is and what is that the processing will have to do in order to have an output. As in, what it is that a business have as far as sales, and what is that business will have to do in order to gain that sales and have the delivery of a product or a service be done as an output. So you have a business logic. If you think about it from step 1, 2, and 3, the third one being an output, how do you have that business logic and data analytics come together in order to produce data and capture those data for the purposes of better business intelligence? You are able to see how data is flowing into your organization, how those data are captured, and how they're being utilized for the purposes of better business process, and how it is that improves our business logic for the purposes of having this logic scale up and have interoperability for other functions, and you have at the end a good user experience, or a person who buys your product or services will end up with a better experience for them to return back to your business, right? So now that we have business intelligence and business logic that we have gone down the trail in, now we're looking for machine learning use cases. And that's where the future is. We're looking for machine learning use cases. How it is that some use cases will use machine learning and some may not. Some may remain very, very much in the control of the humans without having any augmentation by the machine learning system. And that's the goal right now, is to dissect where it is that we can have machine learning today, and if not today, how it is that we will adopt it into the future, and what it is that one part that we know for sure that those use cases will never have machine learning behind it, because it's just that sensitive to the business process. We do not want it to be automated and have a cyber attack that compromises that part of the business process. So if you look at the business use cases, if you look into the banking, if you look into the supply chain planning or your healthcare data, you do not want to just automate all the use cases in business process, because you want to be able to keep some of them from the vulnerabilities, and that is up to your risk assessment team to decide which one does not have use cases of machine learning behind it. Now, what happens if you have tons of machine learning use cases, and these use cases that you have, how do you convert them into a optimized use case? As in, earlier we talked about large language model that has a computer vision built behind it, and the ability to do predictive analytics, a system that can articulate what it is seeing and can predict properly what it is that it is expected to happen next, right? What sort of business case do you get out of that if that was the machine learning capability that you're developing today, right? How do you optimize all of your machine learning capabilities and bring them together to have them perform in a way that it either augments or assists your current workforce and allows your workforce to grow for purposes of better customer engagement, better market share, and better return on investment. So this is a short presentation, but like I mentioned earlier, I would like to discuss a few topics with you that helps you to adopt an AI machine learning use case today and start developing on top of that. Right? Um, Let me go back a few slides here. I would like to just depart with the thought that Neuralink, recently discussed the fact that they're ready for human test. Right? They're looking to gain approval from the FDA's for human test in ability to have a brain machine interface that can interact with the human brain in order to take command, in order to have that communication happen without using any muscle, right? Just that brain muscle that's able to communicate to a system using a Bluetooth technology. So as you can see on the picture, there's a person who's wearing a Bluetooth chip that is very small in size, just fits in the back of the ear, and that is what connects you to all the systems around you. So be it a laptop or a car or just any machine that you can think of in the future. So you have the ability to buy these sort of services out in the market, but when you bring it home, how do you adapt to it? And the way you adapt to it is by getting started today with your data structuring process, that coal mining process, where you have to dig up the dirty coal, that dirty data, and cleanse it and have it ready for model training for adoption purposes, right? Your data is what's going to make these future use cases that much productive for your business logic and your business intelligence purposes. So, uh, if you have any further questions or any comments, I do not see anything on YouTube or Facebook. I will stop here and thank you all for listening in. If you are looking to join us next week, feel free to join us. We'll be posting early about time and date when are we going to get started. And then bring your questions, bring your curiosity, and then we'll be able to have this conversation one on one with you, or out in public, however you feel comfortable. Looking forward to your visit next week. Thank you, guys.